Leina'ala and Kuruya, Miss Hawaii.
My mom was born in Pu'unene in Maui. Um, Her family grew up in Kamaole. They owned land out there and they were pig farmers and vegetable farmers. And my mom was the oldest of 8 siblings. And so herself, 2 brothers, and the rest sisters.
She was the oldest.
Yes.
Was she, the typical oldest, like an overachiever, kind of like, the perfect child, or?
I would say, part of the story that people don't, I think, realize seeing all the kind of, Miss Hawaii, Hawaiian Airlines things is that they grew up, they weren't wealthy, they were pig farmers. They were, they had a big family. And my mom worked really hard, actually. She basically was helping to raise her siblings from a really young age. She told me that my grandmother would leave her a list of what to do to cook them dinner when she was 7 years old, because my grandma was out helping my grandpa and she was there cooking and making meals for her younger siblings. And a lot of what I remember hearing is how hard she worked with her father out on the farm, and also how much she did to help raise the kids until she went to Kamehameha schools at 7th grade when she boarded. Yeah, she went to Kihei Elementary, and then at 7th grade she moved to Oahu.
And did she graduate from Kamehameha schools? What class?
She did. 1964. Yeah.
The year she won Miss Hawaii.
Yeah, same year. Yeah.
Wow, that was a big year for her.
That was, yeah, she basically, my grandmother knew that, my mom, she wanted, more for all of her kids. And she basically told my mom, we can't afford college. We don't know how we can support you. But my grandmother saw an ad that the winner would get a college tuition or a college scholarship. And so she told my mom, my mom was popular with the guys and beautiful. And she was rather shy, actually, in a way, but she, my grandma told her, well, if you do this, you might be able to get a free education. And my mom really didn't want to. She was like, I do not want to be seen on stage in a bikini. That's not my thing. She was like really kind of freaked out about it. But with my grandmother's kind of push, she was like, okay, I'll do it for the opportunity, that could come with it. And then from there, she won Miss Maui, won Miss Hawaii, went on to top 10. And so it was in Miss America. So it was, kind of this defining moment in her life, I think, that kind of propelled her into the next things that she got to do. That would have been shortly when she would have won Miss Hawaii. And then I know they traveled the world for a year as an ambassador. And she always shared about, the amazing places that she got to travel. She had never left Hawaii before that. I don't think they ever, probably as a family, they probably never went anywhere before that, honestly. And so that was her first chance to travel the world. She talked about, my grandmother went with her as her chaperone, and they got to go all over. I think it was like Japan, Fiji, so many different places. And it's just such an amazing opportunity, especially for someone who was raised the way she was, in small town Kihei, Maui. And so it was really an amazing opportunity. She never felt like she didn't get a chance to see the world. She always told us, that year of my life, I went everywhere and I did everything. And so it was really awesome what she got to do in that time. And I think after that, basically our understanding is that every Miss Hawaii is offered an opportunity to work at Hawaiian Airlines. And so from there, she was, at least maybe in the past, I'm not sure, but she was offered a job at Hawaiian Airlines and she took it. And she was a flight attendant for a short time until they pulled her and wanted her to be a part of the sales and marketing team. And so then she worked at Hawaiian for almost 10 years, mostly in their sales and marketing team, where they would travel and, they would be kind of like the little group of ladies that were the face of Hawaiian. And that was back when it was like Aloha versus Hawaiian. And so she was part of that group, and the women that would do a little hula and little entertaining, for the sales and marketing department. I mean, we always knew, she told us, even before the most recent one, the most contemporary one is her exact image, right? You can't deny that that's her profile when you see the two together. But even in the past, when it was more just an outline of a woman, my mom would tell us, she's like, that's, they used me as the likeness of that. And then it became very, very clear when they made the most modern contemporary one that it was the exact, profile.
It came about in 73. So this was actually the 50th anniversary. Yeah, the Pualani logo was originated in 73. And then now it's 2023. But the I did want to add one thing to the Miss America thing that really impacted me from that story, from hearing from her, was her choice. It was her choice for the talent. She was really passionate about the human rights issues that were going on and all the racial tension, and so her talent that she chose instead of the hula was she painted herself black and was doing a thing to honor Black people, and to kind of stand up for the shifts that were taking place then integrity to stand up for at the time, which was not widely accepted.
She did that monologue, Kawika, for Miss Hawaii, and it was based on like a civil rights kind of message, but they wouldn't allow her to do it at Miss America because it was too controversial. And so she had to change it at Miss America, and she did something. She was more like reliving the life of a person who was blind, and it was like the sights and sounds that they were hearing and all of this kind of stuff.
Poor people say that coats of silk and bright sateen with golden thread are worn. I've often seen them passing in my mind, but oh, I want to really see them so.
So she actually wasn't allowed to do her original.
Oh, that's what it was.
It was it was a very moving and beautiful piece that she did in Hawaii, but they wouldn't allow her to do it at Miss America.
I mean, it really just is an overflow of who she's always been, for us. I mean, it's like her whole life, she's always been a part of causes, and pretty much full-time, part-time, doing all this volunteer stuff, which eventually led her into politics, just because she kept figuring out, like, how can I help make a difference, and she just always had that real heart for kind of justice and righteousness and being Pono.
She was a Maui County council member from 1990 to 1992. She was running in politics for about 6 years, I think. She, she felt a calling. She always said she didn't want to get into politics. She knew how, how political it would be and all the bureaucracy. She never really wanted to, but she felt a calling on her life. She felt like she was supposed to do it. And so she started to run. She ran for state senate. She didn't make it. And she did end up winning a county council seat, and she served one term, and she shook things up a bit at that time. One of her biggest accomplishments, which was also very controversial, was voting against the expansion of the Maui airport to make it an international airport. She just felt like the moment it would become international, that Maui would lose kind of its, the quality that it has, that special Maui no Ko'oi part of it. And she knew that the moment that it expanded, that would change everything. And so she was really passionate about keeping, Maui small. I mean, that decision has its pros and cons, but she really felt like for the people and for the islands that the right decision was to not expand. And she faced a lot of, feedback from people for that, especially people who could profit off of that decision. But she felt very, very strongly, that it shouldn't happen. And it was kind of came down to her vote that stopped that from happening at the time. And that was a major accomplishment in her time when she was a county council member.
Wow.
Yeah, and she also got a lot of beach access for local people, and especially in the hotel areas that were really trying to close off big chunks of the access to local people and kind of keep it these like tourist centers. And she opened up a lot of beach access, and she got the first skate park ever built on Maui, which was really good for me as growing up as a skateboarder with nowhere to go and getting kicked out of every place we tried to ride our skateboards. So that was really cool.
Did she meet her husband and get married? There's this really kind of funny, it dates the piece, right? Is like that at the end of the Miss America thing, it says
18-year-old Miss Hawaii has a wonderful sense of humor, which probably explains why she places that trait high on the list of qualities she would look for in a husband.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Is that true? Is that what happened?
A ham. We used to call him a ham because he was such a storyteller. He would, if you got him up in front of people and you gave him a mic, he would just go on and he would start to crack jokes and tell stories. And I think some of his stories would get, he would exaggerate and and he would definitely ham it up. So yeah, that was part of it. But the real thing that got to her, usually they say the way to a man is through his stomach, but in our family it was the opposite way. My dad was a chef, and he would date her, and he would bring her amazing meals from his restaurants after work, and they would go to the beach and eat a meal together that my dad brought from the restaurant. And my mom loved his food and loved his cooking, and I think for her, she was really taken by that. And probably the accent, probably a lot of different little things, but for sure it was the food too. And when my dad, the test for him was when she went to a big family gathering, and he sat down and he had an opportunity to eat all this Hawaiian food, and he ate everything. My dad loved it all, and she said, okay, you kind of passed the test.
Kawika, did you have something to add?
I mean, my dad was definitely very entertaining, and he was a character for sure. Yeah. He was either shocking people or making them laugh. Yeah.
Oh, my mom and dad met on Oahu. So my mom was working for Hawaiian. She was one of the 3 dancers with Danny Kealakini, and so Kalekini. And so she was living and working on Oahu, busy in the evenings with her hula dancing and that whole world that was happening for her. And they met. It would have been sometime in her late 20s or early 30s. Because they got married when she was around 31 or so. And so my dad was actually from Scotland. So he wasn't American. He was from Scotland. He was a chef, and he traveled the world, and he always dreamed of living somewhere where it was warm. And he always dreamed of meeting someone who was like a Pacific Islander with long flowing hair. It's like he saw these images that you see on TV and such. And he always imagine that. I mean, he grew up really poor in Scotland. They were cold. He always wanted to move to warmer weather. So that was his dream. And so he kind of traveled the world. He traveled Europe, as a chef. He made his way. He was kind of slowly making his way to the South Pacific. And he stopped in Hawaii, and through different church, they were both involved in the same church. And so through that, they met each other.
And they got married in what year? And I know he passed before she did.
Yeah, he passed quite a while ago. Yeah, he passed in 2000. So he actually passed of cancer, and it was definitely too soon. I feel for my mom that she lost her husband at such a young age. But yeah, so he passed in 2000, and he was 60.
It would have been 76.
That's right.
Probably,
a year before
Kawika was a year before born. I was born. Yeah, I guess I'll say one other thing about her nonprofit kind of like stuff that she did. Like one of the things she did was put on these events called the March for Jesus, and for her biggest thing that she's impacted us with was her relationship she had with God. And I think when I was 18 is when she kind of it was the first time I really asked her, like, Mom, how are you so like awesome? How are you so solid, so stable? Because we had a lot of challenges growing up, whether it was financially or whatever it was, but she was just always so like loving, so aloha. I mean, just like the most amazing, loving, unconditionally loving person. And that's when she kind of shared with me a bit of her like more of her life story and the deeper, harder stuff. And she kind of went in, from when she was a kid and this and that, and basically how she eventually got kind of everything. She was this Miss Maui, Miss Hawaii, this famous entertainer. She had all the stuff, all the money, whatever it was. And she was really unfulfilled. She even tried to kill herself a couple times. And it was on the 3rd time that she was going to kill herself that she had this really divine intervention on that night, and had a very powerful encounter with God that changed her forever. I mean, she said for 9 weeks, she never thought she was like on a cloud, never thought she needed another man. I mean, this love that she had been looking for just for so many years, and just kept not finding it. It really filled her to overflowing. And she said ever since then, like nothing has ever, she's always felt that fulfillment and just had so much love to give. And we've seen that over my whole life. So she'd put on these March for Jesus events on the different islands and stuff. And then eventually she was working with a group called Focus on the Family. And so she was basically going to churches and trying to equip people on how to make a difference within government, for, loving values, godly values, family values, for things like that. And so, and a lot of these things were all volunteer that she would do apart from her normal jobs and stuff. But yeah, I think her main legacy that she's left with me, and I think my sister, is really just that deep faith and that deep, I wouldn't say like a religion or that type of thing, but more just that love of God. And for me, it's just I've seen it so clearly in her life, and it's caused me to have that same connection, which for her, for a long time, she's been ready to go. She's always like, it's gonna. She wasn't bummed at all. She knows she's going home to be with God and stuff, and yeah, it's cool to know. So sad as it is with her passing, I know she was definitely ready to go, and there was no fear in her. It was really beautiful.
You, Christina?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Kawika said. I mean, apart from being a devoted mother and a very family-oriented person, she was coming from a big family, and we have a large extended family on Maui and spreading throughout Oahu and different parts. And our grandmother on the Kong side, she comes from a large family. And so we have those roots. We have the Hawaiian roots. We have, all of those Hawaiian family values that are really important to all of us. And my mom's greatest joy was being a mother, and it was just me and Kawika, but it was her favorite thing in life. But I have to say, apart from, even more than us and my dad, she loved God. She loved Jesus more than anything. And that for sure would be what we would want people to remember about her, and realize that her beauty was not just on the outside. It came from the inside, and it came from that experience that changed her life. And it gave her that grounding and that solidness that she was able to carry throughout the rest of her life, and is why so many people are being impacted by her loss, and why so many people who might have only had a small moment with her were so impacted by her, because it wasn't her physical beauty that they were experiencing, it was the inner beauty. And that's the thing that we want people to remember. It's not about all the accomplishments, it's like she was that person because of her inner life, and something happened the day before she passed. She was having a hard day, and she loved to put on Hawaiian music sometimes and dance hula for exercise or just for fun. And she was having a hard day the day before she passed. And, of course, I didn't know everything was happening so quickly. And I put on this Brother Is album for her. And her favorite song came on, In This Life. And it's a song that she's danced hula to a few times for very special occasions as like a tribute. She did it once for my grandfather, and she did it some other times. And that song came on, and she was sitting in her chair, and she was kind of closing her eyes and just taking it in, and she was doing her motions, her hula motions, just sitting in the chair. And then she was like this, by the end. And she was just receiving that story, because for her, that song was about the love of God in her life. In this life, I was loved by you. And so that was the moment that I'll always remember, in the end, that she kind of just embraced that moment, and she put her hand on her heart, and she was nodding her head, listening to that song. And I could sense like so much peace, come over her. It was really, really beautiful. And so that's kind of like what my brother said, that's who she was. And that's where her light and her aloha came from. Things happened quickly, and like Kawika said, we feel she was ready. There's a lot of people, when they find out they're sick or they're terminal, they really struggle with the idea of death. They're freaked out, they're scared. And my mom never once was she scared, never once was she afraid. She was so ready and at peace, and she lived a full and beautiful life. She of course misses the thought of spending time with us and her grandkids, but other than that, she was ready. She was so ready. So we know that she's okay. We know that she had a full life, and it's okay, and it's just nice to see that people appreciated her life and her legacy. And so my mom and I lived together for about 9 years on Oahu. And then I had an opportunity to buy a house here in Volcano and get away from the craziness of Oahu. So we took that opportunity, and my mom spent the last 3 years just living here in the green, lush forest of Volcano, enjoying a simple, quiet life, going to farmers markets, eating waipio poi as much as she wants, and going to Richardson Beach down in Hilo and sitting out in the sun. My mom was really satisfied with simple things, nature, family, beach, You know, that's how we'll always remember her, sitting at the beach. You know, she was happy. If she could be at the beach, she was happy. So she didn't need glitz and glam. You know, she was a very grounded, simple person, and as long as she had her family and some outdoor, she was good.
I'll add a couple more little things.
Yes.
She when she was going to Kamehameha schools, she was learning to surf, and she learned to surf partly with the Waikiki Beach Boys, and then she was body surfing at Makapu the day I was born too. Yeah, so she definitely instilled in me somehow this love for the ocean, and I'm very magnetized to the ocean.
Yeah, my brother has always been a board sport person. So he was a bodyboarder. He became pro at a young age. Then he's, you know, moved on to surfing. Now he's hydrofoiling. So being in the ocean, you know, with my mom, probably from being in the womb, that was definitely a big part of what she passed on to him.